Oh, here, I'll tag you.
Oh yeah, good man, Alan.
Let's see.
Let's see. Diddly-bum-dee-doo. It's a gay day, as they say. Soulogy one is not right.
And put a little nature music. Um, so you're what? 68 today? Earth
Yeah,
years? 68. Man,
yeah,
you're in good shape for 68.
not bad. I try my best, As they say, this is a shape.
A shape.
Yeah.
Is
People
that?
say you're in shape, and I say
Oh,
yes. This is a shape.
yeah. I'm a pear.
There we
I,
are.
I was
Talking about being
I was turning
integral.
into coming out of Sedona, man. Coming out last year. I didn't realize how big I got. I got kind of big in December. All I was doing was eating, and
Well,
I got over
oh
here
sorry.
started, huh? Okay.
No, go on, go on.
No, I was just saying I came over here and I started you know, starting to fast at the beginning of every week. This will be the seventh week tomorrow, but I've done well like in four. I've done really well like in 4 weeks. Okay, in 1 week, and two I didn't do too well. But I dropped like 20 pounds. I haven't gotten on a scale, but you know, I stopped at one of those truck stations here in America. Those truck stops on the highways, and they have these scales in the bathroom. This was about, I think, end of December, and I got on one, and it said I weighed like 229. The biggest I've ever been was 230, and I told Morgan, I'm like, man, there's no way I don't weigh 229. That scale was wrong, but I don't think it was. But I think I'm about 210 now, which is closer to what I like to be at. So 68 years old, and that's not even a good term, is it? You've been on the earth for 68 years.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Thank
First
you,
of
my
all.
friend. Thank you. And I'm glad to be alive because after what happened 18 months ago, I'm still lucky to be alive, really, because I was on my last legs, if you remember.
That was what, 2 years ago? Or a year
No,
ago?
that was it's really about 15, 16 months ago. It happened October the 31st, so it happened on Halloween. And apparently I was only minutes away from departing this mortal coil because it took over 6 hours for the emergency vehicle to get me to the coronary care hospital. You see, where they were waiting for me, but it was because we were having sort of reduction in ambulance services at the time and all that sort of stuff. But it was a very peculiar time because I never felt afraid during the whole process. My poor wife did. I could see the terror in her eyes when she was beside me at the bedside. Um, but I just felt calm and collected all the way through, and I can only put that down to the protection of spirit,
Yeah.
and also almost as if Todd, it had to happen for a particular reason. And I don't question these things now. I just come out the other end, basically, shake myself down, dust myself off, and carry on going forward because that's how I sort of live my life now. I don't really try and work anything out because my feeling is that if you just take the action that you feel inspired to do, then the information comes later on, even sometimes months later, where you can look back and see more clearly, and that's how I live my life. And I
Yeah.
feel all right doing it, mate. I feel great in myself. I feel clear minded. I like to laugh and joke. I never mean to cause offense to anybody, but sometimes just opening my mouth causes murder.
Well, I mean, I know that's something you've been dealing with your whole life.
It is, mate. And, I was born to be Aoka. I know that. It's clearly written in the stars that Joseph Peter Aloysius Delaney, born 6 weeks premature at 4 pounds, with scoliosis of the spine, congenital hip deformities, respiratory problems. He was meant to pick himself up, dust himself off, and show the world how it's supposed to be. That's what I really feel in my heart.
Well, you know what? If anyone could speak to that, it would be somebody who had a what we would call a life-threatening experience 15 months ago. Not to mention the rest of your journey. You know, the whole journey that you've talked about many times. So, what do you think it was 15 months ago?
Well, just
That
before it happened on the first occasion, Todd, I don't know, because I think I remember telling you, I was going for my park run, because every Saturday morning I do this event. It's a 5K event called the Park Run, where we have sometimes 500, 600, 700 people. It's a free event that happens globally, and it's basically a social event. But you can sort of become healthy by doing it and stuff like that. So I was running to the start, and suddenly before me opened up this great big portal. It was like a swirling sort of a portal, and there were all sorts of lights flashing around it, almost like stars and things. And I'm running, warming up for the event. And I thought, aye, what's this? And I got a sort of strange do 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 do, that sort of sense. And I just say to me heart, which I believe is my connection to source, I say, what's all that about? I said, because if it's time for me to go, I don't want to go yet. Thanks very much. And people have said to me, that's called a choice point. Well, I don't know whether it was or it wasn't, because I don't really get taken away with a lot of this stuff, but I just thought, I'm not ready to go yet, if that's what you're saying. So just let me get on. So I ran that race that week, and I felt terrible that evening. So I was taken to the hospital, and they did all sorts of blood tests, and it says, we can't be quite sure whether you've had a heart attack. So off you go, take it easy, and if anything else happens, come back. Anyway, a week later, on the park run again, right? I didn't get the same portal thing, but I got some funny feelings. And that evening, I was sort of in absolute agony. The pain was horrendous. And my wife phoned up the ambulance, and they said it'll be at least 3 hours before we get to him. So she took me to the emergency room. They said, we'll get him to the Broad Green Hospital as soon as we can. And the whole process took 6 hours. So when I got to the emergency hospital, they were ready, and they inserted a coronary artery stent in my heart.
mm.
And Todd, since then, everything's been absolutely fine. I feel great. What was it all about? I don't know, Todd. I mean, was it? I really don't know, mate. And that's like most of my life. To be quite honest with you, I've got no idea what's going on from one moment to the next. But I do feel a sort of sense of purpose that sort of emerges in me.
Did you did you feel like um, a different sense of purpose, or a wider sense of purpose after that happened, or was it? Because I mean, I can understand like your calmness. Like I get that, and I think a lot of people could probably relate to that. It may not have happened the same way, but we've been faced with certain things after we've gone through dark nights of the soul, etc. But you said at the very beginning that in other words, there was a reason it happened, but you still don't know, and you really don't care. It sounds like whatever was meant to be received by you was received.
Yeah, and I think that I seem to be a person who trusts this process completely. That everything that happens in my life now, because, over 30 odd years ago, I've said this before, I handed my willpower, and my life over to the care of the universe. I didn't really understand that, but I was on my last legs. I tried to kill myself, and I was, as somebody suggested to me, just surrender now, right, to your next level of intelligence. And I didn't have a clue what they were talking about, but they said, Joe, every single thing, every idea, every emotion, every attitude that you've developed throughout your life has brought you to your deathbed. So why don't you completely and utterly just hand it all over now to the care of the universe, like I have and many other people? Just surrender now. You're not surrendering to anything outside of yourself. you're actually surrendering to the next level of your soul's development. And I didn't have a clue. But he gave me the instructions. I said the prayer, and I'm going to say the prayer again, Todd, because I think it's helpful. I got to this point, call it a rock bottom. I said this prayer, God, and I wasn't in touch with God or anything, and I still am not. I'm not a religious person. But I knelt down, right? He said, kneel down, he said with me, and I thought, I'm getting hijacked by some sort of cult here. And he said, look, just do it and see what happens. And so he said, follow me. He said, God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of this bondage of self, that I may better do your will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Kapow. I woke up the next morning, Todd, in a completely different world. And as I was going to bed that night, I lived in a place on my own. I was 9 stories up. I was terrified. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I sat on the edge of my bed because I had the light on, because I was afraid of the dark. 38 years of age, still afraid of the dark. And this voice said to me, honestly, Joseph, we love you. I thought, and this is what I said, bit of bad language coming up here. I said, that's very, very nice. Thank you. Fuck off, I said. Leave me alone, I said. Go away and come back when it's light in the morning, right? And then I fell into this really, really deep sleep, right? And I woke up the next morning, Todd, in a completely different world. My gestalt had changed. I looked at the news. I thought, I can't understand what's going on. So since then, Todd, what I do every morning is, as you know, I tap on my heart and I say to my heart, hello, is there anybody in there? And I get a sense of connection. It's like linking up to the internet. I got a good connection, and then I say, what are we doing today? Because I feel that I've got this sort of collaboration with my higher self. Call that my soul, call it my guardian angel. I quite like the feeling of a guardian angel, because sometimes when I get a bit apprehensive about things, which isn't very often, I get a sense that I get sort of this like hug from behind that gently moves me forward. I don't know whether it's making any sense, but I feel, when I don't know what to do, I just sort of tap on my heart, get in touch with this guardian thing, and I say, look, I'm undecided what's the best way to go here. Give us a clue, and then I just wait. And it's almost like I get a sort of a menu of options, right? And I have to pick the one that's associated with the most healthy choice. So I don't do good and bad. I do healthy or harmful, and that makes it a bit easier for me, really.
Yeah. Ty says care or concern.
Yeah.
Are you in care? Are you in care? Are you in concern?
Yeah.
Right. Now, I'm 61. All right.
Guys, you've had a hard life, mate.
Yeah, no kidding. It takes 2 to tango. So you're 68. And we know we're not linear. I'm just trying to get some perspective. Because I look at this as a summary life. And that's even taken on greater proportions. But I mean, if we just talk about the human lineage alone, there just seems to be there seems to be certainly patterns of programming that we come into awareness of within ourselves, which is really where it matters. And then, but there seems to be predominant patterns in people's lives, like in my life, in your life, and everyone else. And it's not a bad thing. It's just, it's a thing. And they all of the basis or the anchor of the programming and the patterns is trauma, right? I mean, it's trauma. That's what that's what it seems to be, shadows, trauma, whatever. So I can't really, I'm just sitting here going, okay, if it was 7 years down the road, I'm 68 years old, and let's just say everything falls, in proportion to that. And where would my view on morality change? Because I've had some I probably had 4 or 5 moments in the last 5 years where my physical body did some weird shit. I know a lot of people have talked about it. We talk about ascension symptoms, but where I thought, wow, I could actually go right now. But they didn't last 6 hours or have 2 episodes, nothing like that. Nothing compared to what you're talking about. I just can't step into that space. Does that come up for you? Has your mortality, what does it become? Has it become precious? Has it become, have you become gracious with it? Have you said when that happened and that portal opened, you didn't want to go. What if it happened today? How would it be the same?
Well, it has changed me because it's made me more focused on living one day at a time. And I can feel now when my brain is going into the sort of past, I can feel myself falling off the wagon, if you like, and when I go forward, I can feel that happening again. So it sort of helped me to focus more intently on what's directly in front of me. And I live my life now by acting upon information received, and it seems to emerge. It almost like gets presented to me on a plate. Right, here, Joe, this is probably the best way for us to go today. And I just focus on that. And as a consequence, I'm far less distracted with all the bollocks that's going on in the world, because I used to be so neurotic about it. Oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? Are we going towards a third world war? What about this? What about that? Todd, I'm not really bothered about looking outwards and what's going on in this great big drama of life. What I focus on more than anything else now is how I feel, because I think how I feel is representative of how I'm processing all the information that's coming to me from multi-dimensional sources, and it's been that powerful, especially since November. The information that's been coming in, has caused me to be sort of knocked off my feet a few times. But fortunately, I've trained in this for so long, I can almost like get back on top of the wave again and start surfing again. So I don't know whether that's answered your question, but I'm almost like kamikaze now about life, because I know that I'm an immortal, Todd. I'm an immortal, and all the fear of dying has been taken away from me completely. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to die a long, drawn-out, miserable, painful sort of a thing. If I'm going to go, I want to go 50 yards before the end of the London Marathon. And people say to me, well, don't you want to go like after you pass the line and all that? No, I want to be remembered for that fella who nearly made it.
Yeah, just make sure you wear that tutu with no underwear.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But, so I don't know, Todd. People say, when I say to people, I don't care about dying. It's not that I don't care about living. Of course I care about living.
Yeah.
But I don't feel... It's not that I don't care. I'm carefree these days, if that makes sense. It just, nothing seems to land on me and bother me much. I'm not immune to it, because I only ever feel like I'm scratching the surface of what's possible for a human being, And that's really sort of... these abilities seem to be becoming enhanced quicker and quicker, really.
Oh, cool. We can talk about that. But back to what you said, though, immortality, right? Immortality, mortality, and again, I think we can relate to saying, I'm not afraid to die, and but like those 5 episodes that I cited, maybe what happened to you, there's these moments that we have. And mostly with ourselves, right? Like possibly, I didn't have these when I was younger, but, I had harrowing episodes, let's say, where you go, oh shit, I could have died. But when it's your body, this is what struck me at the beginning when you said that, like this happened in my body, something was being told to me or something was coming up or something, I don't know. But anyway, so, but I think when those moments happen, your perspective of mortality changes. It's not like, hey, I'm not afraid to die. And I get it. We're humble about it. We mean it. But until the pressure's on, then it becomes a little bit different. Okay? So but then the immortality. The immortality, in so many ways, is becoming a bigger and bigger part of our awareness. But it's the same type of thing. In that it's, I don't want to say this to slight anything, but like it's easy to say it. For me, it's easy to say I'm not afraid of death, so my mortality doesn't faze me. But by the same, and then of course, then that sensation or whatever comes into the body, and you're like, holy shit, I could actually go right now. And it becomes a totally different perspective. By the same token, then you have the immortality. Now, we've all had divine episodes. We've all had everything that got us to this point. And it just seems like those types of sensations, but the other side, right? Where you get a jolt maybe of immortality. And for me, it's more of a physical, like a human, a very human physical thing to kind of step into that immortality. And it doesn't feel immortal. It feels mortal. And I'm talking about, hey, we're leaving social media. We're going to just do this. Regardless of whatever's happened in the past. We're just going to go do this. That's the type of feeling I'm talking about. And I think there's a lot of people doing it. So to kind of conclude it, I think a lot of us are coming into the bigger than words are immortality. Part of what's happening is, and people are just recently talking about it, our true self is coming in, and this true self carries a soul signature.
Yeah.
And it's superseding all of our belief systems, all of our, and again, not to make light of anything, all of our ethnicity, all of our certifications, all of our schooling, all of our, experience. And I'm just wondering, because I know that you're kind of like you've shown in the shows that we've done, like many people, pretty wide, varied multidimensionality, from anchoring in certain light languages to epiphanies of intuition and so on, and just as you explain your life. Are you feeling this yet? Are you feeling your soul signature and how that will kind of matriculate into what has become this very moment by moment? I appreciate life and I'm present every day with it, and I want to serve, create, love, and such. Are you feeling this?
Yeah, I think for a long time I've felt that, Todd. I think that it's an infiltration of the soul, of the essential self, that actually has to work through every single cell of the human body. And the more that I realize, right, I love humanity and I love the human more than I've ever loved it before, because the human is the hero. It's almost like paradoxical, because on the one side, I know that I'm immortal, and on the other side, I want to stay here as long as possible and maybe do something good to make the world a better place. I know that sounds very grand and all that, but that's what it's become to me, Todd. I really don't care for myself, right? But the thought of dying and leaving my loved ones, that's the feeling that I don't want. That's the feeling that causes me to hang on, And I know that each soul, no matter what its age, is responsible for itself, but it doesn't take those feelings away. Even me pets, the cats and all that sort of thing. The thought of losing those, Todd, it brings it brings emotion to me, and I feel like crying sometimes. Just the thought of losing those closest to me, and and people say, I thought you didn't care. Well, they misunderstand, really, because I don't care on the one hand, and I care more than I've ever cared on the other hand, and it's hard to explain, but these are the deepest feelings that I've ever had. It's like living a life where half of me's crying and half of me's laughing at the same time, and that's how I sort of live my life now. I look at the world, I look outside, and I see what a mess that this world is in. And I know that people say the world outside is simply a projection and a reflection of collective consciousness. And I disagree with that. I think it's a reflection and a projection of collective unconsciousness. And I think what's happening now is more and more people are becoming conscious of their unconscious and wanting to take actions now that will indeed make the world a better place. I think that's happening, Todd, and I think it's happening more quickly than we realize. I don't know whether this is making sense. It's just coming out as I'm saying it now, but I didn't realize that all my motives, generally speaking, even though my head was full of good intentions, my motives were driven by something that was below the level of my consciousness.
Right.
Meaning, I set out to do one thing and ended up doing another thing, you see. And I didn't know that 4/5 of the processing of all the signals I was receiving was actually being processed in my emotional component. And that was what was deciding the choices that I made. And when I used to say to people, I swear to you, I will give up drinking. I won't take any more of these substances. I can see it's breaking everything apart. I really meant that, Todd. But there was something under me, call it the devil, call it evil, call it reversal, call it whatever you like, the shadow self. That was directing my choices because it was driven by more self-centered motives. Over to you, old chap.
Yeah, I saw this video. I want to go back to the mortality thing that you just brought up because it is different. And I said most of the time when we question our mortality, this is what happens. But the other part is what you just said, and we'll go back into that. I saw this video. It was interesting. I'll just mention it. A couple of days ago, it was just a short, and the guy says, "You think a tough man is such and such, like whatever he said, like big and brawny." And he said, "A tough man is someone who can have a glass of alcohol." So obviously he was a reformed alcoholic, motivational speaker, and he said that can have a glass of alcohol in front of him, and every part of his being wants to pick it up. And he said, and he doesn't. That's a tough man. So yeah, I get that in the energy of, I felt that in the energy of what you were saying. The immortality thing. Many of us, I think, have had back in the day when the astrals were blazing, like for me anyway, right after 2012, and I know a lot of people I talked to was the same. There were some people come across transitioned souls, relatives, strangers, friends, that would be attached. They wouldn't leave because of, primarily, as I understood it and I experienced it, their concern for those that were still here. But in reality, it was their attachment to those people, or those aspects, those unhealed aspects of themselves represented by these people, their regrets, etc. So this falls into the same kind of field for me. I've got 6 kids, or I've got Morgan, I've got, whatever. And I agree, for many people, pets. I know that is a soul-to-soul connection, just a different vehicle. There's no question that the huge role that animals have played, the animal kingdom's played in this whole thing. But I think losing someone, that's a different point of reflection in terms of mortality. It's okay if it happens to me, but not to them, right? And that's kind of not settled with me. I know it's not, and I can admit that, because it feels different, but it's still mortality. But is it that old John Wayne thing, like I'm the man, and I'll take the bullet, and it can happen to me, but it's not going to happen to them? Is there still some of that in there? Or is it, you know what I mean? Because, or is it because I'm attached? It's something there though. So I think that's a very valid point to consider.
I don't think that we'll ever be free from discomfort, because I think discomfort is what's called the evolutionary impulse to keep searching. In my view, we're here to experience humanity, both at the depths and at the heights as well. And I think that there may be some sort of a 0 point where we think we've made it until the lesson pops in, the next lesson, So I think it's peaks and troughs. And then there's a plateau where we sort of can rejuvenate and reinvigorate ourselves before the next challenge comes in. That's the way I see it, really. And I think, how can you tell whether you've made the right choice? Because you're open and flowing, so just keep going. It doesn't mean to say that you don't have the feelings. I think there's two different sorts of feelings. There's a contractive feeling, which to me is an ego attachment, and then there's a natural feeling which is still flowing. There's a complete difference between self-pity and grief, but unless you can't tell the difference. So this is, to me, is about discerning what is which, what's which. Is this grief? How do I know? Because you're just open and you're sobbing your heart out and you can't stop the process. With an ego attachment, if the phone goes, you can stop it temporarily, pick up the phone, talk to whoever you've got to talk to, put the phone back down, and then pick it up where you left off, you see. So one's almost like a pretentious one, and one's a real one. We used to talk about a couple of years ago, authenticity, which we called raw authenticity, and I think that's the difference. People are starting to discern now more about the emotional component of what it is to be human. Because I think I lived a long time in a dissociated state, just like a head on a stick, where I'd be watching your reactions and I would change my emotional state based upon what I thought you were thinking, because I'd get you to like me, and then I'd change my mind like a chameleon, to try and sort of draw you into my sort of spider's web and stuff like that. I don't do that anymore, Todd.
Where multiple personality meets multidimensionality.
No, exactly. And I think the difference is multiple personality disorder is disordered. Multiple intelligence is when you've come out of the chaos and you're more focused now, and you can choose which one of those aspects that you put into play. I was only thinking about this today, that really living life as a human, it's a bit like driving a car. Most of the time you can sit in neutral going nowhere. But if you're aware of things, you've got a whole choice. Then you decide to put the shift lever into gear. So you can decide whether you want to go forward or backward. But most of the time, I was in a situation where something would happen in the environment and I would automatically react. So the car was driving itself, you see. So that's what I mean. I've just become a better driver. I'm not perfect at it, Todd, because I think, as I say, I'm only just scratching the surface. And if I make a mistake, I can honestly go back now and say to people, I'm sorry about that. I was wrong. Todd, I couldn't do that before. I couldn't say to anybody it was wrong. I would duck and dive and dodge and weave and tell lies at the drop of a hat to try. And people knew quite clearly that I was lying. I was the last person to know, mate.
You're the last person to know that you're lying.
Yeah.
No, I get what you're saying. And then, but you were talking earlier about the people saying that the collective sum of the internal conscious intentions that we have create the external, and I guess that's heaven on earth. But you were saying that you see it more as what's been created is from our unconscious, and I agree with that. And obviously that's part of what's being transformed, each degree up the ascension path that we take. And so the thing about the patterns, like one of the things we've come to understand is that there are certain patterns that we've had, like the more primary ones, I guess you could say. Many of those patterns are patterns that we share with each other, such as mother, father, family, failed relationships, of whatever. So I think we've gotten to a point where we're starting to stop the cycle or liberate ourselves from the programming. Therefore, the patterns are stopping. Now, for this year, for me, and I'll go back to the Soulogy example only because it's an example, okay? Because if it just felt like coming into this year, or once I was conscious of this year, that nothing else mattered anymore. What I mean by that is the relevance of the story of Todd, let's just say, changed. Was it relevant, the journey that I had, the choices that I made and going on the street and this and that and all the different, yes, it was relevant, but it took on a different relevance because of what you were saying earlier about you were setting out to do one thing and you ended up doing something else. Well, I found in 2023 that everything, any and everything old went out the window. But there was still stuff that was in my makeup, or, you know, it hadn't washed off completely. And so noticing, you know, in myself, going back into the story, going back into the identity of the story that got me here, which is not going with me. So it's like somebody wrote me a message today, and they were asking about, I don't want to get specific, and I mean nothing bad about this at all. It's not like that. I'm just trying to make a point about this change, and I'm going to conclude it with a question. So they were saying kind of like, this is what Soulogy used to be, and what I'm hearing now is something totally different. I don't understand. Okay? I haven't answered that message, but it's a pretty easy answer to me because it falls in line with what I'm trying to communicate and inquire about and find out more about. Okay? So for me, that answer is going to be real simple. That was Soulogy then. Whatever was said then, whatever applied to then, there was a choice made by me, by Morgan, by the Soulogy Third Energy, by people all over this world, is what I'm getting at, that let it die, right? And that's what I'm feeling. So I'm having a very hard time going back into those memory banks, because there's this other memory coming in, which is why I asked you the question. Do you hear, is that voice, materializing into your being? Because this all seems to be happening super fast in 2023. And I guess at the end of the day, for me, it's like, if those things there, as great as they may have been, and we know they weren't all great, right, for all of us, they were all trauma-based. So when Todd, so to speak, metaphorically gets ready to write the book of his life, if that were to happen today, I feel like none of that would even be mentioned. Only like maybe the high points, only the what did Morgan call them, like the lamppost, like the things that you can absolutely not deny. Todd and Morgan get married in a spiral, spontaneously, or the different connections, or whatever the case is. But most of it isn't coming with me, and and I'm kind of like looking at myself, going, will I ever talk about that again? Will I ever? Like, it's almost like it's not even there. So I don't know. I mean, I guess my question is, do you see any correlation there in terms of, like, our stories are dying too? The stories of our identities are dying too. And I'm just curious, because as everything that we let go of, something else comes in, and we know it's multidimensional, multiplicity to it. So if I'm letting go of these identities that got me here, Todd that walked on the street, Todd that worked, out of a suitcase, and all these crazy stories, that's going to, right? Like, that wasn't me, Todd, today. That there, it might have been in the moment I connected with Morgan, or the morning I was this or that, right? I mean, these seminal things, but. And that's why I feel like this, in a lot of this I'm saying because of the channel that Morgan got in last night, that we, in the session that we just put out before the show, and that was one of the things that she was pulling in, is that you being all of us, you will, your memories will come back, right? Your memories of who you are will come back. And then I caught on a thread later, and I was talking about the most important memories are the ones that have been created through that pure thread that got us all to this point, even though there's still the dross and the what would you call them? What are those things? Klingons. Klingons on the Kling. Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, I thought the deaths I think everybody can say it, 2022, death, all the way to the end. And then I get over here and I'm going, I mean, I feel good. My body feels good. We're getting along well. But at the same time, there's a part that I realize now it's gone. And for me, Soulogy, the recent occurrences of Soulogy reflect that. Not as Soulogy, not as Todd Morgan, but as the entire thing is happening. This is a huge drop, I guess is what I'm saying. It's a huge drop. She described the motherboard, the old computers where the motherboard looked like a radiator, right? And they pull it out, like that it has been totally pulled out. So I tapped in on that session and I went, fuck, like all this time we were like an air conditioning filter. We were spraying the motherboard of all the shit on it, thinking that this is okay, that this is who I am. I'm getting rid of all these shadows and programs and overlays, and then all of a sudden the motherboard gets taken out, which leaves me at, who are you, Joe? Well, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of freaky to me.
I can ID exactly with what you've just said, totally. And what it means to me is that we are transcending memory. We're going beyond mind. And by the mind, I mean the stored mind, memory, the knowledge base. I think we're now moving into what's called a wisdom base, right? But it's based upon our essential selves, who we truly are, because everything else really has been an illusion. It's been based, you call it trauma based. I call it fear and defensive based. So all the actions I've taken in the past have been basically fear reactions, emotional reactions based upon defensiveness. And I think as we're becoming more and more free, we're becoming more and more fearless, and we don't have to work from any script anymore, because the script suggests that it's already been written. And I think that we're moving to a place now where we have our individual soul's abilities, our vocations, our skills, our aptitudes, our innate abilities based upon our essential selves. And we don't have to learn anything because they're natural to us. So we don't even have to think about it. We just have to open up and just start to expressing ourselves without thinking about it. Because I don't know whether this makes sense, but when we go into our head, that's when what I call the headator comes in. And the headator is based upon past patterns. But
the headator? Is it?
Headator, I call it headator, yeah.
You've been hanging around Kate Lumley.
Oh yeah, no. But I mean, I've always called that the headator because it's the interferer, and this to me is the seat of stinking thinking that's based upon fear-developed patterns from the past. Yeah. We don't need to work with that anymore, right. Because as fearless ones, we need to trust our intuition. Intuition. Go on.
No, but is it okay? Just real quick, isn't that rooted in trauma? Not to be right, but just to like build a common denominator. And two, are we? It feels to me like we're not even going to be talking about our stories, which to me, that's why I just went and drew the line between the 2 points. Trauma is the origin. Yeah, I understand it's fear programming, death programming, but trauma is what infiltrated our body, to use the word used a while ago. Trauma is what condensed and concentrated in our body and created disease and all that, blah, blah, blah. So, I just feel like we're not going to be talking about, I guess I would say, the past. It feels like it's literally, like people talk about time leaving, space leaving, the past. Or maybe it's seen in equal measure with any, any moment of consciousness in any part of our multidimensionality or something like that. But it just feels like the past and the future.
I agree. And I think that the past and the future are on a horizontal timeline, I think where we're going from an evolutionary point of view, it's vertical. Ascension is vertical. I mean, we're not, in my understanding, we're not actually going anywhere because, But that's another thing. If we talk about different densities, I think that the whole of humanity is being moved, whether it likes it or not, right, from third dimension, right, through the fourth dimension into the fifth dimension and beyond, right. And so to use different densities, I feel now that we've just, for the first time in eons of time, there's been a new pathway that's opened up, right? And it's actually drawing us up. As it opens, it's drawing humanity up. But I like a phrase, Todd, that says transcend, but still include what's gone before. Because there'll be people at different phases of their development, and it may be useful to be able to tap into, not being attached to, but to tap into the story when it's relevant to help somebody else. So then we've still got the whole of the scale then. But I know exactly what you're saying, I sort of know exactly what you're saying, because I feel like myself, I can't remember who I was yesterday. Never mind going all the way back into the story that's happened to me. Because even a few years ago, everybody was intent in trying to get their story across, and look how bad it was for me. That side of things seems to be disappearing completely. I don't know whether that sort of confirms what you're saying, but I can identify totally.
Well, it just seems like we're going from a defense to an offense, and in the offense,
But even to use the word, I'm sorry, even to use the word offense suggests still a duality, doesn't it? Really, I think it's just expression based not upon thinking.
Okay, so let me put it this way. Okay, so you swim sometimes in those triathlons, or whatever you call them, triathlons. Yeah. So swimming. So imagine swimming, at your fit best, and boom, 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 half a mile, whatever. Now imagine swimming, and you have 80 pounds, 20 on each arm, 20 on each leg. So when I say defense, that's what I really kind of mean. Like, we were handicapped. We were burdened. What was the root of the burden? The trauma. What is the point of bringing up the trauma into our field if we've cleared it? There is none. So that's why I said, okay, it feels like that our history's gone. And so I feel lighter, but I also feel like a void. And so what's coming in? And that's why I had posed a question about the soul signature selves coming in, and then that's starting to actually take a physical, just like everything else, right? But we already have figured out that we can't build with constructs from, let's just say, pre-2022 and back. And what are those? And why can't we build with those, right? Like, why can't we build with those? Because they're from that phase, and they have components within each construct that's trauma based. There's something in my ego that was Soulogy pre-2022. Okay, as an example, somebody comes to me and says, "Oh, I thought this is what Soulogy was all about." Well, it was, but choices are having to be made. Things are having to be constructed. We're all changing our lives, and that's why as I look at what we're developing, this is like all of us. It's only 10, 12 days, and it's not like the way it used to be. There's no organization. There's no this or that. It's very telepathic. It's intuitive. We had this triad collaborating with triad, and Morgan's getting this channeling for. There's all this stuff happening, right? So it makes me, approach the days as they're going by like, well, all that there. It's not even. I'm not trying to take anything away from it, but it's not of value anymore. If I'm going to build something or be a part of a collaboration, be part of a relationship, be part of a community, whatever it is, I'm only bringing what's coming, and that would fit through that eye of the needle that is, let's say, 5D, which tells me that that's all gone now. And I'm not saying that's an easy thing to ponder. I'm just saying that we've realized now the patterns, the trauma-based death, fear, whatever you want to call it, the defense that comes from the trauma, isn't coming with us. And that's, like everything else seems to be getting to a point of it's an all or nothing proposition.
No. Let me ask you a question. Serious question. For me, a serious question. Do you feel that you have taken the correct action?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, I do.
That, in my opinion, is the only answer. Because that, to me, is what evolution is, Todd.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. So, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I think, and okay, that goes back to what I'm saying. There's a new, when we made choices before, it was a whole different dynamic. We make a choice now. It's a powerful, creative, force. And so, yeah, I mean, but I would say this, the reason I stopped and thought about it is because, look, first of all, there's a lot more than me involved. This is Trinity energy. It's not just me, Morgan Soulogy. It's not just me, Morgan Third Energy. It's all these other triads that have overall all of our development, and Soulogy is just an example, build this new Earth grid with the octahedral pattern, with the triad, energy and such. So, even to answer that question is like, that question's where I came from. It's not even a question. It's just where things are right now. That it's strength. And of course, another way I would look at it, or try to delve into it with you, would be like, and of course we personalize this. Is what we do on SOULSPEAKS 5D. Like, all the talk about self-care, the understand, and we're all here. We all came with the service stick. All of us. We came here to serve, but we also overserved and underserved ourselves. So that we had this whole thing work out, triad in ourselves, and you have this newfound love and respect for self, honor, sacredness, and we know now that it's not selfish to fulfill ourselves. Like if I asked you last year, what are your dreams? Where are you going? You would ask me, whatever, right? What is it today? Like, how do you gauge it? I realize you go, and this is great. Moment, we're present. It's moment by moment. I tousle the kid's hair when I walk by. I smell the flower. I kiss my wife. But like personally, like, what do you want to do for yourself? What do you want to see happen for you?
Me personally, I would like to see that what's coming through me or from me or whatever, right, is taken seriously, because I really feel that I've got a leading role to play in carrying the message. And the message that I've learned over time is that what you're looking for isn't out there, it's in there.
Right.
And so my job is really, right, to share my experience, and that means the past, my strength and my hope with people, right? And that seems to help people at a heart-based level, And so what I'm doing is to try and grow in understanding and effectiveness of passing that message that I've just said.
I see what you mean.
And I think what I'm trying, and what I'm trying to say is, right, this is what it used to be like for me. This is what it's like now, and this is my hope for the future. And I'm going to carry on, but I don't know everything. I'm still learning like everybody else. I listen to everything that's coming in. I allow it to sit in my heart, and I don't quite know what that means. And I allow my heart to choose the next movement. Well, how does the heart choose? Because it moves me forward, and it helps me to pay attention to the thing that I need to look at next.
So
and that's how I do it.
I see. No, I get what you're saying, what you said a while ago.
Okay.
I just got what you said. Okay, because I have a friend of mine who's a street preacher, and he has the same pedigree, and I just snapped. So let me just do my thing and translate, and so you can confirm, because I'm 99.9. Back then, the story was a tool. It was a bridge builder, right? Now, this would be for, educators, students, all the way to the street people, everyone in between. You get over here, if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're carrying with you from that story is not what I was referring to back there. This, you've come in and you've gone, I can carry this message directly, it sounds like, directly to people who are going through the same thing that I went through. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know how you can look at somebody and know they don't have to say anything. You know it's written all over their face. Like even like I was saying this on the show a couple days ago, I noticed in September and October, November, when people were coming on the show, they had that look. That's why I was saying everybody was more humble, they were more human, and that's what I'm talking about. So what you're saying is that, and this goes back to what I was saying. Are you picking up soul signature frequencies? Like Liverpool is a working class environment, right? Like Cleveland, like Houston used to be. I mean, so there's a certain characteristic there. There's a certain that finds its way into the way things code is exchanged and communicated. And so what you're saying is that's a powerful part of how you reach into people is not the story, it's the tool or a tool that helps you build common ground. Because it sounds to me too, at least this is what I'm picking up, that you're connecting with the common man and woman, as opposed to, regardless of your academia, you're looking for results from the ground up.
I'm sort of not looking for results as such. I just am able to mingle with the salt of the earth because that's where I came from. And, it's an energy thing, really. And you don't have to say any... I was told, Todd, when I got into medicine, the professor of medicine who was supervising me, he said to me, if you want to get anywhere in this field, you'll have to stop all that colloquial stuff. Well, first of all, I didn't know what he was talking about, so I had to go and look up what colloquial meant. And it basically meant slang. It meant the language of the common people. I tried...
What do they call it? Caucus? What do they call them? What's the slang called?
Cockney rhyming slang. That
Cockney.
One.
Cockney.
Yeah, they're the London ones. But in Liverpool, it's called scouse,
Scouse.
And, scouse.
Linda Scott was scouse. I think.
I tried, Todd. Because I'd stopped drinking by then. But I tried, hello, it's awfully nice to meet you. And I tried to mix with all those academics. And I nearly went back on the piss because I was stressed to hell trying to live this pretentious talking thing. And in the end, I got back to, fuck this for a lark. Right? It's too much. This is how I talk. And what it seems to be is people meet me and they get, he's a doctor, he's a doctor. And then when they hear me open my mouth, fucking hell, he sounds like us, and that's because Todd, I'm not trying to make it up anymore. I'm not trying to change the way I speak, because that would mean I'd be back into my head. I'd be watching people's reactions. I'd be having to put all this, this rigmarole, and it will cause me stress. What I do now, Todd, is, and there's a word, and I've used this many times before, it's called extemporaneousness. It means you don't have to live from a script. There's no script. Open your mouth. See what comes out. And I believe that's... freestyle. It's almost like, right, it's just authentic channeling, but not from any sort of external entity or anything like that. It's coming direct from source itself. I open my mouth, and as I've said to you before, sometimes I have to play these things back to see what I've been talking about, because I'm not like trying to throw any clever phrases in or anything like that. So to go back to what we were saying before, this is all about energy, and people can pick up, they can resonate authenticity. And if you're trying to be authentic, it's not authenticity, Todd. That's the whole thing. If you think you're humble, you're not humble, because humble doesn't come from cognitive mentality. It comes directly from an open and flowing heart. So there's no fucking effort. Excuse my French. It's effortless effort, Todd. That's what I feel that this is about. So open your heart, see what comes out, and let's see where we go with that. And by the
Well,
way, can I just say, when I open my heart in the morning, I just go then with what I feel. I don't try and work it out. I go with what I feel, and I don't have to justify my actions to anybody. I don't have to pacify anybody unless I get that contraction and that gut grip, because I'm not perfect. But if I get a gut grip, what I've learned is to step back from it now, because that's an ego, a defensive system. I have to know that that's a trigger, that some part of my ego is being threatened, and I have to go back, see where the hook's gone in, and then go and apologize if I've hurt anybody as a consequence of that defensiveness. Other than that, I don't have to do anything, because the problem's with them and not with me.
yeah,
But it could be
I
wrong.
I either read something yesterday or my wife told me. I can't remember, but or got in it together or something. I can't remember, but it was about when you don't have to tell anyone how or why. You don't have to point out anything about anyone. You don't have to make comparisons. You don't. When you got it, you got it. I guess that's what I'm saying. And maybe this is what I'm grasping at straws today. Like, what does that look like? What does that feel like? Because if we're not going to be egoic, and I believe that we're not in the sense of it being the unconscious co-creation that we've had. This is now a conscious, higher frequency, active consciousness where the ego has a different role, and it's very loud when it's out of line, either as an observer or an experiencer, which I think is what you're talking about. But yeah, I mean, even going back to your story at the beginning, you said, and I think this is a great example. I hope this makes sense. You set out to do one thing, and you do something totally different. So I could see, like, I could go back to my own life in the corporate world. I was in the similar type of thing. It must have been many men around the country. I mean, around the world, and even women, as things got all weird. So I had a certain intention. I wanted to be seen as such. I wanted to be Michael Jordan. I want to be the best, right? Like the whole thing. But then you get to the other side of it, and even if you got what you thought you wanted, you got something totally different. And it was a good thing, right? It was where the humility comes, the fall, the looking at yourself and saying, oh, who am I to talk shit about those people over there that aren't awake? Who am I to talk shit about people that have a spiritual ego? Because the fact is, if I really had it, if I really snapped, those thoughts wouldn't even be in my head. And the fact that they are tells me I'm a work in process. I can live with that, and it doesn't demean my field of energy, because, it's not that somebody pissed on me. It's that I actually had an issue that somebody, even came at, that you see what I'm saying? It's like this whole thing has changed to the point where it's not about assessing why or who. It's understanding that it's exactly what I make it. So, and I can only get there. And that's why I love doing the show, and like doing a show with someone many, 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 many times like you, is you cannot, the only thing like you said, what'd you say earlier? I don't know anything. I don't know shit. Right? Well, I don't either. But I do know one thing. The odds are with me, us, the more open that we are. And that openness starts not with me being open to other people, but me being open to what I don't fucking know. You know what I mean?
See, here's something that's come to me, and I've been honest about it, is that I still don't feel clean all the way through, Todd. I feel that there's certain aspects of me that are still dirty, whatever that means. I think it's important to make meaning of your own metaphors. It's not really important that everybody understands it, but it's really by talking like this openly and honestly, something seems to sort of dislodge these things, and they then float to the surface. And then it's for me to understand what it means and what it is, And I've got no idea what's about to sort of emerge tomorrow. But I know that if I use the same principles that I've used today, I've got a really good chance of getting through it quickly and understanding more, really. And so, I sometimes think I'm on the wrong side here, because if I get into that good versus evil thing, I think I'm not a good fucking person at all. These thoughts that are coming to me, they must be attaching themselves to something. What's all that about, And, then I get told, oh, you're probably on a redemption contract where you basically, you've been a black angel and you're coming back to try and make restitution for all the abuse of power that you've done eons of time ago. And then I get to, oh, well, if that's the case, give us a clue. But here's the thing, Todd. The less I try and work it out, the easier it is, right? And I know that most of my life was directed unconsciously because of an external moral code or socially engineered moral code that was fed into me as a very naive, right, child, right? And most of my life was basically lived on other people's opinions of how I should live. And once I started to see how programmed and how constructed and how false that I'd been, that's when all this sort of shade started to come off, right? And Todd, you know what, honestly, and you know this, I'm all right with who I am today. Am I still in progress? Yes, and probably will be forever and ever, right? And somebody said to me, don't worry, Joe, the ego dies half an hour after you do, right? And I thought, well, that's good. I think that the most important disciple of the 12 disciples, right, if whatever you want to look at, was Thomas. I think because doubting Thomas was the one that said, hang on, Lord, right, something smells fishy here, right?
Ask
and
questions.
The others, and the others talked him out of it and said, no, Thomas, don't be doubting now, Thomas. You must follow the instructions because it's all for your own good. And I think that's what's happening now across the planet. We've looked to authority figures and we've trusted them. And that's why we're in the shit that we're in now. So this is about the individual now, using all his senses now to their heightened extent and smelling and tasting and watching intently and questioning absolutely everything and asking the heart to navigate us through this stuff. And if you want to call that the internal moral compass, I think that's what we all need to do. Stop looking outwards for answers, because what you're looking for is in there. And it's not the heart, it's the soul. And I think that you've got to open the gates of the heart and sink deeper to where the oracle is. And you've got to sit with the oracle to say, I'm really stuck here. I don't know what to do. Give us a clue. And when you let go of that questioning, the answers automatically come. I've gone on there like a preacher, but that's what I feel like today. I always have a whole load of jokes.
Just rip your shirt open. We know there's an S there.
Yeah.
What were you just saying? Yeah, there was one other thing you were just saying. I don't remember. Oh, well, there was something else I can't remember, and maybe I will. But I wanted to ask you. I saw the picture of you and your mother, and I saw the text was. You were telling your mom that today was somebody's birthday, and she's like, "Who?" But
I said to me when I saw her this morning, I said, "Hey, Mum," I said, "What were you doing 68 years ago?" She said, "I don't know, son." I said, "You were giving birth, Mum, to a beautiful baby boy." She said, "Who's that?" I said, "It's me, Mother, and I'm still your beautiful baby boy." Right. And, I said, "So how old does that make you, Mum?" And she said, 21, joking. And I said, "No, Mum, you're 70 years out. You're 91 years of age." And she said, "No." I said, "Yes, Mum, yes." And so that's where I was this morning. I was with me ma. We were having a laugh and a joke. And then she can't remember. After about a minute, she forgets, But I think, in a way, Alzheimer's and these things, I think that spirit, the spirit of love, I think it's a way to prepare for the transition into the next
Yeah.
life. I honestly do. And I
Yeah.
think to try and keep hold of memories can be disconcerting, really. So
Yeah.
we've got this, we've
That's
got this thing about that if we let go and let natural processes take, this is me,
right.
I'm very big on this, we allow nature, as my dad would say, we allow nature to take. My dad had two phrases. Son, he said, think for yourself and let nature take its course. And I believe that now. They're the principles of James Patrick Delaney. And I think if
James
everybody,
Patrick
James,
Delaney.
yeah, James Patrick Anthony Delaney, and I'm Joseph Peter Aloysius Delaney, both JPADs. So
Aloysius.
my dad was straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of these, son, you can only eat one sandwich at a time. You can only smoke one cigarette at a time. You can only drink one drink at a time. Why do you need all this other stuff? And that's where we've sort of got lost. We've just become these greedy consumers. See, I can go on about all this,
Yeah,
but
but you
you
see
know,
what you just said. You know what you just said. I had a grandmother and a stepfather that had dementia, so I know what you're talking about. Because it dawned on me that they're actually on the other side
yeah,
in
yeah,
this what looks on the linear timeline like a slow, laborious process, right?
yeah.
So, but based on what we were just talking about, so you see what I'm saying? Like we're in the dementia.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
so you know what I
That's,
mean? Because like what you said about talking about memories can be like, uh, uh, you know, it work against you, right? Like you were talking about her. So that's what I was trying to say. So maybe, and again, we're not going to nail it down, but it's interesting that you said that because that's the way it works for them. They're actually somewhere else. They look like they're here, and we're trying to hold them here, right? So that's what we were talking about. I feel like that we're in the dementia phase. We're in the phase where the lucid dreamish other is all coming in, and what we've only known, really, is we're sitting in the nursing home in old body, yet we're out here. Yeah, you know what I mean? I know that sounds a
of
little bit
course, it's
convoluted, but
called no. That's what I wanted to say before when we were
mm,
talking. I
mm,
saw that sort of clearly. It's called
mm,
myonutics, really, and people have called us like people who are a little bit further along. We're almost like spiritual midwives, and we're helping people in the rebirth process. And I think what's actually happening is humanity at large is going through the new birth into
mm,
the next world,
mm.
the next stage of its evolution. I can see that as clear as anything. But there are forces that keep dragging us back from the birth canal, with all sorts of enticements and free, it's fascinating, Todd. I mean, if we had more time, we could go on
It's
about that.
another
But
thing too. Like if you think about the birth canal, because people are talking about that, and so here you are, you, me, whatever. We're in this amniotic sac, which is the universe.
yeah,
Uh, you carried by the mother, right? And then we come out. New way of breathing, new way of eating. This is what I'm talking about. So it is both are applicable. But I also want to go back to your mom just before we get out of here, because today is a special day. It's your birthday. Uh, the mother is the mother is the mother. That's taken on a whole, just like everything else, as we get into 2023. What is your? I know speaking to you, you're the whole gamut. You're the human, you're the soul, and you're everything in between. You're the deep dragony voice. You're the everything. What does your mother mean to you? What does she
it,
represent
dep-
for you? What is
it,
how does that
it
how does
depends.
that yeah
It depends which day of the week it is, Todd, to be honest with you. Because there's sometimes what actually happens when I go and see my mum now is that I can always sense that there's an infection on its way. And when there's an infection on its way, she becomes a different person. She becomes the cut through, sarcastic, cruel, mother, right? The one that I was always afraid of, because in the relationship I've had with my mother, it's been a love-hate relationship, and that's very atypical of like an Oedipus Rex complex and stuff. There's all sorts of mythology that goes with this, but I never knew whether my mother was gonna hug me or hit me over the head with a plate or throw hot water on me and stuff like that. So that was the relationship I had with my mum. But now I can sort of detach from all that, right, and just love her anyway, So that would be the thing, is in the moment, right, there's nothing between us whatsoever. We're just the same as one another, and there's no sort of barriers at all, right? But I don't know if it made that sense, but that's the sort of relationship, and obviously it's influenced all other relationships I've had. But I've come over time now is not to forgive. I think the word is release the attachments that I've had to all that now. So I don't know whether that's made any sense, but Todd, I've got to be honest about it. Sometimes I come away and I say to my soul or my heart, I say, can you let her go now because she's in such pain, right? And then there's other times when she's me laughing and joking, loving mum, and I think, no, hang on to her for a bit more because now I'm enjoying it. So it depends what day of the week it is. It depends which way the wind's blowing. And sometimes I come out of that nursing home to think, I've got no fucking idea what this life's all about. It seems cruel. And then on the other hand, I have different feelings. But generally speaking, I'll just say this quickly. Generally speaking, when I leave there, I say, and I have a word with my dad. I say, Dad, if there's any way, can you just bring her to you now? Because I can't see the point of this, I don't know whether I've gone on a bit there, mate, but the answer to your question
your birthday, do whatever you want to do.
The answer is, I don't really know, Todd, and that's the whole thing is, from one moment to the next, I haven't really got a clue what's going on at all.
Well, I mean,
but I'm just trying to feel my way through it.
Yeah, I got you. No, but I mean, I just meant like energetically, like, because I mean, people, some things have come up about the mother in the last, this month, and I've had my own dance there. We all have. I think the mother is the first place we, you know what I mean? I mean, how many people you met that haven't projected on their mother or haven't had an issue or whatever you want, you know what I mean? But there seems like some pretty deep stuff came in lately, and you talked about releasing. I was writing some stuff down the other night and trying to get to terms with it, and I got toward the bottom. I think I had sent it to Morgan, and just like kind of like automatic writing in the middle of the night, and it was a little bit of a prose kind of thing, and it was like describing the whole thing like you were, like as I'm listening to you, I'm going, wow. So there's one thing, like she shows him the polarity, right? That it's all coming from the source, made in the image, right? So I was getting that as a reminder me of it, but then you said about the releasing, and I remember as I was writing, it was like, and she never left me, or she was always there, meaning energetically the mother's the mother, right? And then I said, but I discovered something about myself. I left her heart. So a part of me removed myself from that which contains me. It was like prolific. I was like, holy shit. I have returned to, what did I say? I have returned to where I have come from, or I have returned to where I have from where I came, and she is still there. It was me that walked from her heart. So yeah, there's some big stuff happening there. I just wondered, because I know because you can look at the energy of the picture and even your words, and
I think to me it's called womb ecology, and we've talked about this before. I've had a link all my life with the sacred feminine, right? The sacred mother, all my life, and I feel that I'm here in a way being guided by her rather than the Jesus masculine side of things, Yeah. But just to say, today is the last day of the year, in the way I see things, and I was born on the last day of the year, 19th of March 1955, and I think tomorrow, to me, it feels big to me, but to me it's the start of Aries, if you like, which is basically the spiritual infant, And I think that that's what we're all going through. I think we're in a corridor now. We're in the birth canal for humanity. And I don't normally talk like this, although I feel like this quite a lot. I don't do predictions as such, but this corridor seems to be important. And I really feel over the next week, right, there's going to be maybe some difficult labor pains coming up, but it's all meant for a very positive purpose, because I think we're going to come out into what you call a new world with no rules, no regulations, but made on a different sort of motivation. And that motivation is going to be fearlessness now, and just our essential natures. So that's what I feel. I feel that for some reason I was born on the last day of the year, and that to me individually means the completion of a cycle, really. So I do feel strong, Todd, and I feel positive. I feel positive with the way that Soulogy is going to go, because it's a big part of my life too. So it all feels great, mate.
You're Soulogy. Everyone here's Soulogy. Yeah, you've been a big part, Joe. You have. How long have you been doing shows? Since 2018?
Yeah, I think so, mate.
This is the 5th year, man. Let's get into 5 years. Let me just make a not shameless plug and give people an update, and I'll try to come on later today maybe and just give like a short update. But we actually have 211 people subscribe. Our first goal is to get to 333. Most of the stuff we have going on right now is behind the scenes, but that'll be showing itself, especially over these next few days. When we get to 333, the social community part of it, we'll be able to facilitate that. So, yeah, it feels to me like it's a very much reflective of what's going on with all of us and the world. It's just such a strange new operating system. That's all. That's all it is. Just a new motherboard. We took the If you read Lisa Renee's stuff on Ascension Diaries, I mean, she talks about the infiltration, the way she tells it a certain way, but I remember some stuff being in there about the false mother, or the feminine was, like whatever. I mean, it's the same thing at the end of the day, but yeah, something's going on. So happy birthday to you. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for bringing me on today.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming on. It worked out perfect. And and tell your wife thanks for letting us borrow you for a while. And and best to your mom.
She'd have me on here forever if it was her way.
I got you.
All right, Todd. So thanks, mate. Love to Morgan, and thanks for having me.